and welcome to the 2023 Downers Grove Candidates Question and Answer Forum for the position of mayor. My name is Amy Gasson, a longtime Downers Grove resident and member or president of numerous Downers Grove boards, commissions, and/or societies. The forum organizers, Tom Shorter and Hillary Dank, would like to thank the candidates for attending today so that voters can learn more about them and their campaigns. They'd also like to thank the Village of Downers Grove for agreeing to air this forum on the Village's Channel 6 cable station and also on their YouTube channel. The genesis of this forum is nonpartisan, has no sponsors, and is purely an attempt to learn about each candidate through this question and answer forum. There are also no audience members present, so questions and answers can be heard clearly without any interruptions. The goal is to inform voters and encourage everyone to vote in this important election. The questions being asked today are a product of the organizers reaching out to a dozen different Downers Grove groups soliciting questions. Every attempt was made to address the pressing issues facing our community. If an issue the voters care about is not addressed, we encourage voters to reach out to the candidates to ask those questions directly. The candidates have received these questions, along with the rules, in advance of today's forum. The candidates are sitting in the order of how they appear on the election ballot. Each candidate will give a 2-minute introduction. I will then read 10 questions one at a time. Each candidate will be limited to a maximum of no more than 2 minutes to answer each question. We ask that candidates please adhere to this time, as answers extending past this allotted time will be edited out. Candidates will then have 2 minutes for closing statements. Now we'll begin with the 2-minute introduction, starting with current Mayor Barnett.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Hillary. Thank you, Tom. My name is Robert Barnett. I'm the mayor of Downers Grove. I've had a privilege of serving this community since 2009 when I was first elected to the village council. It's been a fun journey, and I think we've done a lot of good, and I try to remember that service is first. I serve in this role really because it's an opportunity to give back to my community. My wife and I and our 3 kids have made Downers Grove our home since 1998. Professionally, I have an undergraduate mechanical engineer and graduate degree in business administration. Service is first. Service above self is my motto. It's my logo. It's the reason that I run. Making this community better for tomorrow, better than it was yesterday, is the only purpose. I've really enjoyed my time. I think we've had a lot of great success, and I look forward to continuing it in the future. I'm hoping to earn your vote this afternoon, and thanks again to those who have organized today's event.
Thank you very much, everyone who organized this. I sincerely appreciate you bringing it to the community. I want to take 2 minutes to discuss what I will bring to the table if I'm elected as mayor. First, I will bring almost 50 years of living in this village. I graduated from Downers South. During college and law school, I called this place home, while experiencing life in Chicago and Boston. When my wife and I decided where to start and raise our family 33 years ago, I returned here. I've seen the village evolve through good times and bad. I have seen what works and what does not. I have talked to innumerable residents about everything from the schools to stormwater. Second, I will bring extensive experience in service. I served on the District 58 Board of Education for 8 years. I chaired the countywide special education cooperative. I served as a member of the Rotary Club of Downers Grove and as president of the Rotary Club of Chicago. I served my church, one of the largest in town, through mission trips with high school youth and serving as chair of its administrative council. I have traveled to Haiti to build homes and dig wells with my oldest daughter. The motto of Rotary, service above self, has guided my life long before I sought to join the village council. Third, I will bring a lifetime of education and experience as a lawyer advocating for my clients, from indigent criminal defendants to global Fortune 100 companies. As mayor, my advocacy skills developed over those many years will be used to make this village better through collaborating with other village council members. Finally, and most important, I will bring a deep affection for this village. That affection has only grown since I moved to 75th and Fairview with my family in 1975. My children repeatedly remind me of how special it was growing up in Downers Grove. I not only understand their fondness for the village, I share it. As your mayor, I will consider it my overriding mission to continue to enhance the legacy of this village by building our future while honoring our past.
Do you favor allowing video gaming? If yes, would you favor certain limitations on gaming? If no, why not? And what other ways would you support increasing revenue for the village?
I do not favor video gaming. From adult cannabis to adult entertainment, to adult gaming, to adult alcohol, from horse tracks to racetracks, for fine dining to refineries. There are any number of legal, revenue-enhancing activities that communities have to decide how to integrate or not into their culture and into their future vision. To do so, well-run communities like Downers Grove dedicate time to long-range planning. We create opportunities for residents and businesses to help develop plans and planning documents such as future land use map and comprehensive plan, and then we update those periodically. Part of what elected officials do is consider issues such as video gaming and try to determine if they fit into those planning documents and zoning ordinances, and to determine if they fit the values of our community. As a frame of reference, at one time, local ordinances prohibited the use of alcohol and alcohol-related words such as tavern, brewery, or saloon in the name of a restaurant. I was on the Liquor Commission and played a significant role in drafting revisions to our ordinances to change these restrictions. Those changes made it possible to attract downtown staples such as Emmett's, and later to attract Orange and Brew and Pierce Tavern or Altar and Goldfinger. I think Downers Grove is better for it. The point is, such things do change over time, and it's important that we remain open to considering input from the community. When we last considered video gaming, about a year and a half ago, the input we received was that while a few businesses were advocates of gaming, many were agnostic on the issue. Residents, on the other hand, were more likely to either be opposed or agnostic. Of course, there were outliers in both sides, but generally the input we received suggested the public would prefer to not allow gaming. Importantly, no decision, gaming, development, or otherwise, should ever be solely about revenue. When I consider the possible things Downers Grove could or should be known for, or how we might attract visitors, or how the environment we want to facilitate for our residents, I don't think gaming is on most people's lists.
I do not favor video gaming either. The value of whatever tax revenue would be realized does not outweigh the cost of bringing video gaming to the village. Those costs include collecting, accounting for taxes, increasing addictive behavior in the village, and dealing with the influx of people who will come here only for gaming. With the rise of internet gambling, there's no need for additional forms of gambling in the village. The way to increase revenue is to increase overall economic activity in the village through smart development, comprehensive planning, and making Downers Grove an even more desirable place to live. Video gaming will not make Downers Grove a more desirable place to live.
Economic development has been a focus of past councils. In your opinion, what role should the mayor and council play in economic development and recruiting more business? What can be done to ensure that new development is encouraged while also preserving historic buildings? What specific additions to our downtown would you like to see in the next 4 years?
The mayor and council need to be more proactive in planning for what development will benefit the village. Economic development extends beyond attracting businesses to preserving and creating open land and diverse residential development. The village must ensure that the limited land in the village is put to the best and highest use, which includes ensuring that all development is done with the goal of protecting the historical integrity of the village. This process should not be driven by what developers want to bring to the village, but rather what development and businesses are in the best interests of the village. We need to actively attract the development and businesses we want. Downtown needs more destinations for youth like fair game, an affordable grocery store, and a nice sundry store or pharmacy. We cannot focus development efforts on downtown while failing to develop areas like the land that straddles Lamont Road and 75th on the south side of town, and the land south of 63rd that straddles Woodward. We need to aggressively envision development and attracting businesses that will benefit the areas surrounding these locations, which will also balance development elsewhere in the village. Only recently have the Village and Economic Development Corporation started to see the potential of pursuing residential development that will enhance these portions of the village.
The Economic Development Corporation, a public-private partnership with local businesses and business leaders, has been the village's primary vehicle for driving economic development over the last 16 years. All evidence, from sales tax revenues to property values, unemployment rates, business starts, and business investments, suggests that partnership between the village and the EDC has been successful for our community. The village's role has been to facilitate development through thoughtful, strategic, net positive use of incentive tools such as TIF districts and sales tax agreements. These have been structured to ensure that business incentives play a second-place role to the village's enhanced economic position. For example, a sales tax rebate agreement with a new business only begins to provide rebates after previous sales levels for that site have been exceeded. In other words, we're abating only a portion of new future receipts. The village should continue in its role as facilitator of development. Ogden Avenue and downtown are great examples of how we can drive success. Next up, the new owner of one of our tired malls is working on a redevelopment plan, and we believe this facilitator approach will provide another new opportunity soon. During the last 2 years, the Village Council has focused on our voluntary historic preservation ordinance, updated downtown design guidelines, and rezoned the downtown, all in the last 2 years. This is the right level of government oversight, regulation, and guidance as we work to balance preserving history with new development. Like many, I'd love to have a grocery store or hardware store in our downtown, but ultimately that's up to the market. As we saw with Lemon Tree, getting the business model right at the right time is not easy. Overall, I'm encouraged by the development patterns we've seen since I've joined the council in 2009, and I know our recent rezoning, along with updated downtown design guidelines, encourage certain design characteristics and will continue these successful patterns while preventing creep into our residential neighborhoods.
On a scale of 1 to 5, how would you rate the financial health of the village? Are there new or alternative sources of revenue you would support? Are there cost savings opportunities you would support?
Our financial health is excellent, so I would rate it a 5. Downers Grove finances are in the strongest condition in years. So strong, in fact, that we are both holding property taxes flat in 2023 and using some resources to smooth and flatten future pension obligations to avoid future tax increases. Let me say that again. Despite increasing costs nearly everywhere we look and improving village services, your village will not be increasing the property tax levy next year. The village has a AAA bond rating, placing it at the top of the municipal world in terms of rating agencies on our creditworthiness and financial management. No small part of this rating is our low overall debt, diversified funding sources, and commitment to long-range planning, which has allowed our tax burden to remain among the lowest in DuPage County. One of the things I'm most proud of during my tenure in this organization has been our embracement of lean, which can sometimes be misunderstood as frugal or cheap. In reality, it is neither. Lean is a way of thinking and a culture that seeks to create a value and eliminate waste. Lean is a practice of continuously experimenting to achieve perfect value and zero waste. In our case, as we deliver the services we all expect and depend on. Let me return for a moment to property taxes. During my tenure, we've kept property taxes low while expanding services. While many in Downers Grove are fortunate, overall we have a very diverse economic cross-section. Property taxes can be a significant burden on many, often an exponentially heavier burden on those with lower household incomes. We have spent years aligning revenues and expenses and driving down our reliance on property taxes. This is a critical strategy for many in our population who struggle to continue to age in place as their incomes flatten or decline. Those running for village council now, in the past, and in the future would do well to remember that our homes are not ATMs that provide additional income to pay property taxes. If I'm fortunate enough to be reelected mayor, I'll continue our focus on providing value for our residents, and I'll ensure municipal government maintains its sensitivity to the diversity of economic conditions across our community.
Assuming 1 is low and 5 is high, I would rate the financial health of the village as a 4. Very good, but there's always room for improvement. The village council and staff appear to have a good handle on village finances and have pursued frugal policies to keep taxes low, which is good. Nevertheless, in pursuing these policies, the amount of staff in certain key areas, like human services and sustainability, might need to be enhanced to realize the benefits of low debt and to address future challenges. The top priority to expand revenue sources is increasing economic activity in the area, which I've already addressed and will address in response to future questions. The village will also benefit by pursuing additional sources of federal and state money for public safety and environmental initiatives. The Greenest Region Compact, which the Village Council only recently embraced, will provide additional funds in that regard. I do not see additional staff cuts as a source of savings. Indeed, there might be additional staffing, such as mental health professionals for the police department, that in the long run will make the applicable departments more efficient while raising service levels.
Stormwater has plagued the village for decades. What are your thoughts on stormwater and how to solve this chronic problem? Is the stormwater fee working as planned? What should we do to increase our tree canopy on village land such as parkways and on private?
The stormwater fee is good in theory, but any effective stormwater solution requires strict enforcement. The village is too deferential to developers. Adopting the attitude voiced at a recent council meeting, and voiced actually here today, that the village must take what developers bring to them. Rather, the village must insist on both long-term and short-term stormwater management. In some cases, while a large development is under construction, the developer is not required to remediate stormwater. When a project drags on because certain parcels in the development are not sold, stormwater problems persist, even if the proposed plan ultimately is adequate. I've also observed the village lacks a complete understanding of its own stormwater infrastructure and therefore cannot judge whether any particular stormwater solution is adequate. Stormwater management is intimately tied to the tree canopy. I find the mayor's recent contention that our tree canopy is ever expanding to be unsupportable, given the amount of private development and the dramatic loss of trees and green space throughout the village. All you need to do is walk downtown or on the south side, for example, along Dunham Avenue from Main Street to Downers Grove South and ask whether you see fewer trees than you did even 5 years ago. We need to be more willing to acknowledge the loss of this most important asset of the village and to find ways to restore it. We need to continue to plant trees on village land to provide for future generations, but we also need to require developers to provide more green space and to replace lost trees, including ones that die years after development is complete because of excavation. This can be accomplished with a tree fund into which developers must deposit adequate funds. Now no mechanism exists to hold developers accountable for the loss of trees. Most important, we need to use tax incentives to encourage developers and private citizens alike to replenish our trees.
Stormwater is indeed a problem because for decades prior to the 1972 Clean Water Act, there was no consideration given to stormwater in planning and development. However, we've done significant work to alleviate the problem since I joined the council in 2009. I've been the strongest advocate for enhanced stormwater regulations and system improvements of any council member over the last decade. Importantly, you need to understand what the actual rules are, how they're enforced, and how they relate to the overall system before you can be critical of it. Since that time, your village has completed over 90 stormwater projects at a cost of over $50 million in areas subject to frequent flooding. These projects include working to create regional basins and site-controlled runoff similar to what would be seen on the current best practices of new developments or in the areas south of town. We invest an additional $1 million annually on efforts such as draining cost share, sustainable stormwater programs, downtown water quality improvements, minor stream corridor maintenance, and stormwater sewer replacements. In addition to semi-regional public solutions, during my tenure, we've reduced lot coverage, increasing green area. We've increased setbacks, increasing green area. We've implemented required best management practices and on-site solutions for private infill development, all which work towards improving the overall stormwater system. When we consider the storm events of 2009, 13, and 17, it is crystal clear these efforts are working. Flooding is less frequent, less devastating, and it clears quicker. We're not done, to be sure, but we're far better off than we were just 10 years ago. From a tree standpoint, I think it's important that we have a few baselines of information. First, the village has been a tree city community for almost 40 years. We have more trees, twice as many trees, as when we started that program. For that time, we have also employed a professional forester, a published, well-regarded among our peers professional that manages our tree program. And, according to the Chicago Tree Reason Initiative and the U.S. Department of Agriculture, not numbers I'm likely to make up or try and develop anecdotally by wandering the streets, our tree canopy has increased over the last decade. Everyone mourns the loss of a tree, but taken in full context, the village of Downers Grove has an admirable record of managing its tree population and urban canopy.
Describe how you would speak out and take action in support of LGBTQ+, minorities, immigrants, and other marginalized groups, and how will you show leadership in the response to those using hurtful speech and rhetoric?
I've prioritized civil rights during my tenure as mayor, and I believe that's where our leadership has to start. The village, and in particular the office of the mayor, has the bully pulpit, and thus the ability to help set a tone across our community. I've set the tone, establishing Martin Luther King Day, Civil Rights Week, and Pride Month proclamations, and recognitions affirming the village's commitment to inclusivity and setting expectations on how our residents can and should connect with each other. But I've also walked the walk. I marched with thousands of others in Say Their Names March after the murder of George Floyd. I denounced the threats of violence at our library when an unidentified individual mailed a threat with a bullet attached. And time and again, I've used my position to make clear that the Village of Downers Grove will not tolerate those who seek to trample the civil rights of those who differ from them. I've also ensured safe access to our streets for civil protest, and I've worked across jurisdictional lines to investigate threats to demonstrate that the defense of rights, civil rights, is our first calling. A community that values all its members is a community best ready to rise and meet the challenges we face, and a government that reflects its residents is best ready to serve them. We take our role seriously as an employer and in our environment of ordinances and policies that we create. To that end, our board and commission member appointments over the last 4 years represent the broadest cross-section of our community ever. Additionally, in 2021, the village began a focused DEI effort to attract and retain a diverse team, create opportunities for all, and celebrate differences. We are already seeing results from this effort as your village staff is more diverse than it has ever been. I've helped lead a culture that holds people first, whether it's helping a homeless person find shelter, helping Youth Outlook remain a safe place, or making sure our boards, commissions, and employees reflect our residents. The Village of Downers Grove is committed to doing our part to ensure all members of our community feel safe and wanted. Organizational culture matters, and I couldn't be prouder of the culture I've helped grow, both in the community and in municipal government. If reelected as mayor, I'll continue to lead and ensure your village government is an organization that defends and protects the rights of all and leads by example in what we say and how we treat members of our community.
Village leaders have almost endless opportunities to support marginalized groups in the village, but through their words and deeds must commit to doing so. First, village leaders must speak out not only when violence is threatened, but whenever hate and discrimination surfaces. Village leaders must leave no doubt that Downers Grove has zero tolerance for the exclusion of any group. Second, the village must ensure that its hiring practices and its provision of human services result in opportunities for all, including educational opportunities, opportunities working with the village, and opportunities doing business in the village. Third, supporting marginalized groups requires that village commissioners and related entities are led by representative commissioners and directors. Appointments must be thoughtful and open-minded, driven by the understanding that making the village more diverse benefits everyone, even though sometimes not measurable or obvious. Inclusion lifts everyone. Marginalizing individuals impacts youth in our community disproportionately. It is critical that we create and implement programs that recognize all government institutions, including the village, have a moral responsibility to care for our youth and help them navigate their many challenges. These challenges have only become more complicated with the rise of social media and the expression of hate in our increasingly polarized society, driven by emotion and the need to control our youth rather than reason and the need to help our children sort out their own identity and future. In many ways, as has been the case historically, our youth in Downers Grove are more empathic than adults to marginalized groups. In being the best we can be as a village, we need to learn the lessons that our youth teaches.
Thank you. What policies and programs regarding the issue of homelessness, the working poor, and community mental health are the responsibilities of the village? What actions would you support?
The village bears responsibility for addressing all these issues, but those responsibilities begin with collaborating with other agencies. No one institution can solve the problems that go with homelessness, the working poor, and community mental health. Expecting any one institution to solve these problems is wholly unrealistic. Solutions require cooperation, but the village can contribute to the solution in concrete ways. First, the village must supply, in conjunction with other agencies, the resources necessary to deal with community mental health. There is no excuse for not deploying the medical professionals necessary to provide these services, starting with hiring community mental health counselors to support the police and members of the community to identify individuals who have mental health issues. Second, the village leaders need to continuously encourage the creation of shelters and food sources to bridge gaps in the safety net. Third, the village needs to use whatever means are at its disposal to create more affordable housing to enable more to benefit from living here. The hardest problem in this regard is finding solutions for those who refuse help. But the village cannot use the difficulty of the problem as an excuse to ignore it. The village needs to educate the community about these problems so that all members of the community become part of the solution Many of those who refuse help simply do not trust those trying to help. To build trust, the village must be viewed as an institution and a place where the homeless are not ostracized, but rather treated as individuals whose ability to contribute to the community should be harnessed rather than denied. Another concrete way to do this is to hire someone dedicated to helping the village social worker help find jobs for the homeless and working poor in the village who cannot afford to make ends meet.
Downers Grove is served by a network of township, county, and state services, as well as the services of over 400 specific mission-driven nonprofit service organizations. During my tenure, we've reinstated the Human Services Commission with input for residents and professionals throughout the area. We asked that team to identify needs in our community, analyze existing service providers, identify how best to connect those in need with the service providers, and then identify any gaps between the services provided and the needs that were actually in our community. The most pressing issue identified when faced with a crisis is that people often recognize professional help as needed, but do not know where to go to find the services to meet their needs. As a result, we created a social services referral program directed by a full-time professional social worker to address this critical need. Our social services referral program has helped connect over 500 residents and visitors to the access and help that they need over the first year of its being in service. Help that they've received includes mental health, substance abuse, housing or homelessness, domestic violence, child and elder abuse, and sexual abuse. Last year, we followed up with a gap analysis, looking for gaps in these areas: awareness, acceptance, and availability. Over 80% of those who requested help accepted the help that was provided. We're also working to address a gap we identified in transportation services for seniors and those with disabilities. Awareness is and always will be a constant effort, which is why we're currently working a public awareness campaign to grow and expand awareness across the community of this important connective service. Whether it be the newly proposed county facility, PADS, West Suburban Community Pantry, NAMI DuPage, or others, mental health, homelessness, and income inequality are best addressed on a collaborative, geographically broad basis throughout the county and townships. Many opportunities to identify those in need are first experienced through our local government via public safety, code enforcement, or utility services. If elected mayor, I will work to ensure that the village continues to effectively connect those in need and to help already available services be connected to those who need them. We'll also continue to address the gap issues identified by our Human Services Commission.
Disagreements about public policy decisions and process are inevitable. How would you improve the current process for public engagement in village decisions?
At every village council meeting, the public has an opportunity to weigh in on every single item of our agenda, and a separate opportunity to talk about issues they are concerned about not on that night's agenda. In fact, I've been criticized by some for the amount of public input we've taken on contentious subjects. Some would argue that I've allowed these public engagement sessions to extend into a lot of conflicting commentary, often becoming adversarial between those holding different views. Some would suggest I should cut things off when comments become contentious or negative or directed towards others. That's probably a fair criticism, but what I've done has been inclined to err on the side of our residents getting their say in the public record. Others have criticized me for not allowing enough public comment. They want to be able to engage in an unlimited debate back and forth with the council on every agenda item, almost as if they want to filibuster or create gridlock in the process. Unfortunately, there are a lot of situations where criticisms of the process are inappropriately conflated with disappointment in the outcome. Transparency is sometimes thrown around by candidates for elected office because it's easy. It's like motherhood and sunshine. Everyone recognizes it's a good thing. But the fact is, whether it's development, stormwater, traffic, cannabis, environment, or any other subject, this council makes all its decisions in the effort to have all observe the decision-making process. Every topic is discussed with at least 2 council meetings, and council members are always available to the community. Longfellow, North Main, Forest Avenue, Norfolk sidewalks, District 99 pedestrian safety, the Prairie Avenue pedestrian safety improvement, they're all examples of issues on which we added meetings and content to ensure transparency and to add to understanding of the details of the questions being asked. Everyone disagrees from time to time, including my wife and I, but that's just being human. One of the things I've worked hard at is to make sure everyone on the council has the same information, and I think we can improve that as it relates to our residents. The village is launching a new website within the next 60 days. This new site offers a lot of improvements, and one of the goals includes easier access, clearer presentation of materials for agenda items, including background links, in an effort to improve the likelihood that all residents will have the same information the council has, information they need and deserve.
This problem has three aspects that can be addressed immediately. First, the community must be engaged earlier in the development process. Developers have open access to the village staff to prepare development projects under the radar of community scrutiny. By the time the community learns of a development project, the deal is essentially done. There is little or no opportunity for the public to influence a development by the time it surfaces. Notice to the public needs to be provided as soon as a developer approaches the staff about a new project. The principle of early community involvement applies with special force to the development of a new comprehensive plan. The community needs to be educated as to the value of and the need to participate in the planning process. Recently, the Village Council has used the lack of engagement in the planning process as an excuse to ignore community concern over large developments. But the lack of community involvement is a failure of the Village Council to engage the community, not an excuse for ignoring the community. Second, procedures for engaging the Village Council need to be changed to encourage real dialogue. The rules are currently interpreted such that the public can speak at public meetings, but there is no opportunity for dialogue. The council is free to ignore public input without really listening. The rules need to be amended to allow the council as a whole to talk with, not at, members of the public. Historically, such dialogue has been used by other institutions in the community to solve hard problems. Encouraging real dialogue also requires zero tolerance for abusive behavior at public meetings. The First Amendment does not protect threats, harassment, and slander. Such behavior and those engaging in it must be banned from public meetings. Third, for issues of great public interest, regular public meetings do not allow the time necessary for meaningful dialogue. In those cases where neighborhoods or other constituencies have particular concerns, the council should convene special community forums where the rule and not the exception is dialogue.
The process for appointment to village board and commissions has varied under different councils over the years. How would you lead the process?
In leading this process, I would work to ensure complete transparency, strict evaluation criteria, and greater involvement of community members in the decision-making process. Although on paper the council appoints commissioners, the reality is that the council acts as a rubber stamp for mayoral nominations. Unfortunately, in recent years, there have been examples of nominations in various administrations being driven by personal agendas rather than the merits of any given appointment. If elected, I would advocate for three changes to the process. First, a strict set of evaluation guidelines would be created for each position against which each applicant would be explicitly measured. Second, strict conflict of interest standards would be applied to prevent an applicant's close personal relationship with a person participating in the selection process from inappropriately influencing it. Finally, I would require that recommendations for the appointments be made by a small panel consisting of a council member with no connection to the applicant, a member of the community at large, and a member with knowledge of the relevant commission, such as a current or past commissioner or a staff member with responsibility for the commission. Other council members and the mayor would be able to submit input on candidates, but the panel would have the final say on nominations.
Indeed, this process has varied over the years from council to council. It's also varied from mayor to mayor. As with many of the subjects that we're discussing today, one of the challenges is actually having an understanding of what the process is. It tend to form opinions without understanding them. I set several goals when I was elected mayor for board and commission appointments, and increasing council involvement and increasing diversity amongst those appointments were tops on the list. I also wanted to expand the opportunity to serve to a wider cross-section of residents and create boards that felt better representative of the community. I wanted to increase the odds that if a resident went to a board or commission meeting, they would see themselves reflected in that board. In an effort to recognize residents come before our board and commission meetings, I also developed a set of categories or criteria for board members seeking to be on each board. They included fulfillment of certain categories, such as technical experts, community connectors, advocates, those with legal skills, those with environmental skills, financial expertise, and the like. Each board and each member of a board has an acknowledgement of filling one of those categories. The way we work the process is I select a short list of candidates from a master list of applicants, typically twice the number of openings available. Then, on a rotating basis, we assign a council member to interview the short list of candidates and make a final recommendation to the balance of the council. I'm proud to say with this process, we've achieved all the goals I set out. Not only do council members now have ownership and participation in the process, but the average tenure on our boards and commissions is shorter, providing new opportunities for additional residents to serve, and our boards and commissions are more diverse than ever, better reflecting the community that they serve.
Traffic seems to be an issue across Downers Grove. What are your thoughts on the village's role in this issue?
Making Downers Grove a safe community is one of our strategic goals. In a vibrant community like Downers Grove, walkability, rideability, drivability, and connected neighborhoods are desirable attributes and the reason your village takes pedestrian, bike, and traffic safety seriously. During my tenure on the council, we began a process of periodically conducting neighborhood traffic studies that rotate across our community. To date, we've studied 8 different neighborhoods as part of that ongoing effort. And as a result of those studies, we've made changes, including adjustments to sidewalks, crosswalks, speed limits, signage, and intersection controls. This is an ongoing process and should continue as traffic patterns, pedestrian patterns, and residential expectations change over time. For example, Prairie Avenue from Belmont to Main was resurfaced and striped, transforming it and enhancing safety for all users. We added stop signs, bump outs, and pedestrian crossings at 7 intersections. Lower speed, sure bike and vehicle interactions, and safety pedestrian crossings for all are our goals. Prairie Avenue joins Carpenter, Claremont, and Queens Court as examples of street redesign that improve our shared environment going forward and further many of the goals of our comprehensive plan. The concept of complete streets has a lot of support within the council. Complete Streets is a transportation policy and design approach that requires streets to be planned, designed, operated, and maintained to enable safe, convenient, comfortable travel and access for users of all ages and abilities regardless of their mode of transportation. One of the challenges of a mature, built-out community like Downers Grove is that existing conditions, including utility infrastructure, trees, right-of-ways, and property limits, often prove prohibitive in accommodating the modern best practice designs of a complete street system. That said, we've begun to integrate these concepts as much as possible. Prairie Avenue and Claremont are particular examples of that, reflecting our overall goal of increasing safety and the likelihood and comfort of traveling our community regardless of your mode of transportation. If I'm elected mayor, I'll continue to prioritize pedestrian safety and will continue to push for further applications of the types of street, sidewalk, and crossing designs we've been installing the last several years as we go forward doing scheduled street work.
The village is obviously central to traffic management. Unfortunately, as the density of the village has increased, this management has been inconsistent. Traffic is reviewed neighborhood by neighborhood with little recognition of the interconnectedness of traffic in the village. For example, the traffic implications of the recently approved development on Main Street were not considered in the context of the effect of increased traffic on Prairie Avenue, Warren, and further north on Main Street towards the high school. When traffic on Prairie was reconfigured, the effect on traffic on Warren was not adequately considered. Warren has been flooded with traffic being diverted from Prairie to take advantage of the only nearby east-west artery north of the tracks. The recent approval of the addition of multiple stop signs in the neighborhood near South High defied common sense and the uniform handbook used that governs stop signs. Given that no accidents have been reported and the addition of the stop signs will make it more difficult for local residents to travel the main arteries. The lone council member from that neighborhood voted against the changes as wholly unnecessary. The other aspect of traffic that has been disconnected from the analysis is parking. As development north of the tracks accelerates, the lack of parking north of the tracks has become acute. Accessing businesses and residences north of the tracks is hindered dramatically by the lack of parking in the area. Once the new developments are occupied, the lack of parking will drive residents away from the area. Parking and the interrelationship of all neighborhoods must be considered in managing traffic.
As the village faces potential police and firefighter pension shortfalls, please share ways to meet that challenge and improve the services to our community.
My understanding is that contributions to the pension funds are set by the state and that a separate assessment is made for these funds to ensure they are solvent. Further understand that in recent years, the village's mandatory contributions to the funds have dipped and that the village is reserving funds to ensure that it will be able to meet its obligations in the future as they increase. If my understanding is correct, solvency of the pension funds is secure. To the extent shortfalls occur in the future, the assessments for the pension funds must keep pace. As far as service to the community, our firefighters and police officers are highly skilled. Their youth outreach is commendable. Our police and fire departments are models, and have a long tradition of excellence. They should continue following modern best practices and stay on the cutting edge of their professions. If elected as mayor, I look forward to working with them.
Public safety is super important. It's where most residents connect with local government, and it's usually under stress. So let's start with the good news. Our police and fire services have literally achieved the highest ratings in the nation. Combined with our AAA credit rating, we are among a handful of communities in the state of Illinois and only a few dozen nationwide who can claim all three of those ratings. Part of the culture that has led to the quality of service we provide is one of continuous improvement. We are never standing still. Whether it's investing in our new ladder truck for the fire department or body cameras for the police, we stay ahead of the curve. We do so in training as well. From technical training to crisis intervention training to DEI and self-wellness training. Our public safety teams train, and then train some more. Our performance has clearly shown the results, from surveys of residents and those that we provide services to response times and outcomes. We're really good at what we do, and we do it in a way that keeps people first. Our teams lead with empathy, and we go to great lengths to hire and keep employees that believe in the priorities and values of our community. If I'm reelected as mayor, I'll work to continue that continuous improvement, lean philosophies, innovation, and training. Now to the less than fun part. Public safety pensions are an issue across the state, and since they're defined and mandated by the state legislature and protected by the state constitution, they sit well beyond where local authority ends. This is, however, one of our looming threats. The state-defined pension obligations now consume more than half of the property taxes collected by the village. In other words, more than half of what is paid by property owners for municipal services are not going towards funding those current services. With the exceptional performance in 2022, we were able to hold taxes flat for 23 and put away some funds to help to those future contributions. One of our AAA bond rating considerations is the way our alignment of revenues and expenses includes efforts to connect non-discriminatory mandated expenses with stable, less variable revenue sources. By continuing to pledge fund pension obligations with property taxes, we add surety to our overall financial picture. But as I said before, pension funding is a major challenge.
My opening, I ended with my goal as mayor, building our future while honoring our past. Here I want to put that in perspective. A great village like Downers Grove, which has existed since 1832, does not become great overnight. It does not become great as the result of any one person. It becomes great through the collective effort of its residents over the years. This effort requires communication, honesty, and recognizing what we have in common. It does not require agreement on every issue, which would be impossible. But it does require a willingness to talk civilly and candidly with one another, to seek common ground, and to be transparent in all we do to further the interests of the village. It also requires an appreciation of what makes Downers Grove special. To continue to grow and thrive, we must build. We must attract and nurture successful businesses. We must attract and support new residents. And we must support all community members, most importantly our youth, in finding their identities and pursuing their hopes and dreams. At the same time, however, we must respect the values, practices, and characters that make Downers Grove special. We must protect the integrity of the village, including the integrity of our village institutions. We must continue to fight for what is right and propagate the friendliness and camaraderie of our neighbors and friends. We must reject hatred and bad behavior. We must protect the environment of the village, especially the trees, which have given so many generations invaluable benefits. If you elect me as your mayor, I will work hard every day and bring whatever skills, experience, and knowledge I've acquired while calling Downers Grove my home. For nearly 50 years, to build our future while honoring our past.
Thank you for the opportunity this afternoon, and thank you to everybody for watching, or maybe watching, for taking the time to learn about your candidates for mayor. I'd like to be your mayor again. In the time that I've served, we have invested in our community. We have opened up broader dialogues than ever before, and we have set a slate of values out for everyone to see. We're a community that values investment in its future. We're a community that values all of the people who are members here, whether they're residents, businesses, or guests. I'd like to continue that. I think that's the basis on which we build a community that we can all be proud of 30, 40, 50 years from now. I don't think that comes by calling people names. I don't think it comes by criticizing past decisions. I think it comes by learning from the past and looking for opportunities in the future. That's what this council has done. One of the things I am most proud of in my tenure has been a council that has largely found a way to talk about subjects, hard and easy, from economic development to environmental sustainability, in ways that show respect to each other and ways that show respect to the differing opinions amongst our public. That's the hallmark of good government, and that's what everybody should expect from the government. I'd like to continue that. I'd like to continue that leadership, and I'd like to be your next mayor. Thank you.
Thank you again to the candidates for sharing their time and answers today. Their willingness to share and serve is appreciated. For the viewers of this forum, the screen will now show each candidate name, email address, and one social media link they have shared where additional information about them can be found. We wish the candidates good luck and encourage all those watching to share this forum with others and to vote April 4th.